So I'm Gaedtke, I'm the undergraduate program secretary for the School of Health in Social Science at the University of Edinburgh. I take care of academic administration for our 2 degree programs, one of which is the Masters of Health in Social Science, and the other is our adult nursing undergraduate program. I want to take the opportunity really quickly to send the apologies of Dr. Rosie Stenhouse, who is the academic lead in piloting my progress for our student nurses. Rosie was actually originally supposed to lead today as well, but she ran afoul of the hoof of one of her horses in her face, and so she's recovering from surgery, and she sends her apologies. She really wishes that she could be here today. So I stand in her stead, and for that I apologise. So to give you some background, our adult nursing degree is quite small. It's only 125 students across 4 years, and they're assessed clinically with the Scottish OR, as the ladies from Robert Gordon explained. Our long-suffering Year 4s have just graduated, being the final year to have the paper assessments. Our third years are the only cohort which will complete their degrees having used our first foray into online ORs with a previous system, which I'll talk about in a second. And then there are extremely patient testers in the first and second year who've just successfully piloted a year with my progress. We introduced our previous online platform to our Year 3 cohort in their second year, and after a pilot year we decided to look for another system. The feedback that we had from the initial system was that although it was an improvement on the paper, there was a lot of difficulties experienced by mentors in practice getting access to the system because it was an online-only system. There was problems with some wards having dampers, IT departments blocking outside sites, and mentors not being able to access their NHS emails to get login details. The list goes on. Students' feedback was similar, and my predecessors in the administration role spent approximately 70% of their time on the platform solving problems, so it was a big administrative drain. There's just me as an administrator for the program. So after much deliberation and I'm sure a serious bout of hair pulling, Rosie Stenhouse volunteered to project lead to look into a new system, which is where my progress came in. We decided on piloting the system with our new Year 1 students, our Year 2 students who had originally done a year with the electronic OR, and implementation was relatively easy. I say that because I had very little to do with it. In reality, Rosie met with my progress, our senior consultant Joel Smith, and our business development director Steve Sidaway, and they worked with both of the guys extensively to go through our current paper version of the OR and the previous online system that we had to find a layout that was able to translate them both onto a platform that, well, in a way that would be easy for both the students and the mentors to understand and work with. So I'm not sure how English universities lay out their clinical assessments, so please excuse me if I'm saying really obvious things. The way that Scottish OR is laid out is that the students are assessed on each of their placements in different areas of competency. For example, a student nurse is expected to be assessed as competent in areas like organisational aspects of care, nutrition and fluid management, medicines management, etc. They also complete clinical skills, EU directives, timesheets, and mentor meeting forms. So our original paper ORs were 60 pages long, and that was just for 1 year of clinical competencies, and that's not including all of the students' EU directives, timesheets, clinical skills, and all of the guidance that is available for mentors and students. So our Year 4s ended up with 2 3-inch wide folders to fit all of their documentation in. So it was no easy task for Rosie and the guys to translate and improve upon the original online system while still being compliant with NMC standards. Luckily for me, Rosie, Steve and Joel are wizards. And in what seemed like no time, they'd managed to compress 60 plus pages of paper into 26 assessment forms, making a working timesheet system, and uploaded electronic guidance so that someone like me can administer the platform to the students. Again, luckily for me, my knowledge map is really fantastic in providing training and support to our nursing department, because as we've gone through our pilot, we've discovered other areas within the clinical assessment environment that we've needed to document. So I'm going to take us onto the site. Hopefully this works. There we go. So, for example, during the course of the year, we discovered that some clinical areas were moving students into different roles to fulfill staffing needs. We needed a way to monitor this, and I was able to create a form that we send to students to fill out if they're moved on placement. It's a relatively simple form. It is literally just a yes/no question, and then for asking them to provide some details. It's also really simple to create a form. I'm going to quickly run through how to do so for administrators. There's a big giant bar saying create a new assessment. You can title it. Use this form for. And it's relatively simple once it loads. There's different sections, different titles that you can add. You drag them into your section and create a new question. The title being, do you like cheese? You can insert a text block. This is what they'll see at the top. You can insert a multiple choice question. You can ask that, you can fill in however many answers that you like. And then you can have a look to see what it looks like. It looks like that. You can save it. You can map your assessment to your framework, which is competency, which is NMC standards. And then you can save it. You see that it's here and it's ready to be published and sent to your students. It's not quite ready there yet. When you're ready to publish, once you've finished looking through what's required for your students' assessment, all you just have to say, publish. Oh, it comes. Oh, you do have to drag it in, my apologies. And there you go, it's ready to be sent out. You can also delete it, which is what I'm going to do right this second before I send it to a student. That was really quick and basic, but it's a relatively simple system to use. If your administrators have never worked with this kind of thing, it's quite quick to learn. So we've created lots of extra forms. Some of them store information redirected from the online system, the previous one. One was to give students who are struggling on placement a chance to develop an action plan with their mentors, and we can deploy them to one student or all of them at any time that we like. So the feedback that we've received from mentors, students and staff, while of course having teething problems, has been majority positive. So while some mentors react like this, to being handed someone's personal device, they really enjoy not having separate logins. While some students complain about filling in a timesheet every day, they like that they don't have to have the internet to complete their assessments. And while some of the staff might have technical struggles, they do appreciate not having to leaf through 125 paper ORs with 60 plus pages. And personally, me as an administrator, we had 26 Year 4 students with paper ORs this year, and they spent 40% of the time on my desk. Prior to piloting my progress, again, as I mentioned, 70% of administrator time was taken up in administrating the original online system. I spent a lot of time this past year in fielding how do I questions and giving guidance, but very little on the actual platform doing technical adjustments. So I'm really pleased with how our pilots turned out. We're going ahead next year with a full rollout across our existing and new cohorts, providing ongoing training for students and staff and working with my progress guys to create a detailed guidance documents for mentors. I also can't express enough how helpful and supportive my progress team is. They've really helped make our transition smooth, so it's not as if my progress will introduce a system and then leave you to it. They'll give you ongoing guidance and support. So I've quickly and very poorly run through how we've translated our ORs onto the platform and how we create our forms, but I didn't want to overwhelm or natter on too much. But did anyone want me to go into further details, or do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Lee. I think that's absolutely great, and to start with in the last minute as well. Thank you. You mentioned no mentor logins. So how do you know that the person completing is the person that it should be?
So the way that we've done it is we have the forms given to our students on their tablets or phones. They go with their mentors and fill out the form. The mentor then puts in their name and NHS email address, and a confirmation email is sent to them, and they approve or deny that they've done that.
We've also got a signature in our latest release. There's a signature box which you can add in there, so people can use their finger and just or a stylus actually sign it as well. And we've got some like Cardiff, for instance, they're actually using both of those methods.
Adding into that, you said at the start received confirmation email saying, your email address has been used. Do they then say, yes, it is me through an email, or is it just purely a record thing? Because is it then down to the staff member to check every single email coming through to make sure that, yes, I did sign that competency for that student on that day?
They only contact the administrator if it's not true, basically, and it's generated automatically. Once that assessment synchronised, the mentor then gets the email, and they also get a link to the assessment that they've just done, so they can keep that for their own records. So it's a fairly comprehensive and well-tried system to actually sort of ensure that it's the right person signing it as well. And once that email's in there, it locks that assessment down, so the student can't change it on their device at all. They can only synchronise it.
When a student knows the staff email address.
Can I just add something in there, because I get these questions all the time if somebody uses it. So if the student tries to cheat and uses the email address of the mentors receive notification they've completed it, but also the mentors all have their own sites, so they can actually see who the assessments that's been completed and which email address has been used. So we tell them to notify the educational champion if they see anything. Also, the personal tutor can actually see who's actually signed it off. So if they've used anything like Google or Yahoo, they can identify that. And as a further validity check, as somebody who's overall monitoring the system, I can bring off a complete spreadsheet and see whose email address has been used for every single student for every single assessment. And I think it is much more secure than paper signatures, because actually which can be fraudulent. And also, much more than that, the NMC thinks so as well when we had our validation event. So,
I think also the informatics that you run on that, you'll be able to see hotbetty@hotmail.com that there was a very random email, not an NHS one. So that in itself, we can trigger that up very quickly if there's an odd email comes in.
How do you cross-reference to NMC databases?
you don't need to. What do you mean?
For the mentor to make sure that the mentor is actually on an NMC database.
Mentors aren't. We have our own registers of NMC registered mentors. So how I do it is I've created a form that's a registration form for the mentor. So they actually put their last date of the Tran review and the last mentor update, and then I can bring a spreadsheet of all that list and cross-reference it to our actual database.
But you could create we've actually thinking, because in Scotland we have a slightly different than yourself. A lot of people have digital databases for mental registers, which we don't have, because our partners in practice have it a different way. They send them in more than it's on somewhere that's live as such. It's a different system. and that actually can allow us to actually create a database from My Knowledge Map. So we actually see that as a longer term objective, that we may actually consider using that to be, because the same as what Shan's just said, that when a mentor logs on, she'll put a we already have triennial review and update on it. So when they've done that, we could collate that. So we see it actually as an opportunity longer term to use it as that.
So this is more for sort of Karen and Fiona, really, just to help me get a sense of scale. How many clinical mentors have you rolled this out to? I know you said you get up to 240 students, but how many clinical mentors are actually on the system signing people up?
Well, Shad might be able to, in our areas, most of our areas do 2 or 3 mentors per student. So you can have as many mentors as you want.
And just think about the management, so we've got 2,000 nursing mentors available, we're looking for the whole of health and social care, and so it's that economy of scale. So so that's what I was trying to get a feel for in terms of scale.
You can have as many mentors onto the system as you wish, so we see that as a bonus, that there isn't a capacity.
That number rather than actually the capacity to do it. So I might pick up the option.
And I think the other thing that they like about it, one of the things is that we do hub and spoke model, where they come back to the same placement, so they can see where the students are when they've not got the student. Now you know that yourself, you've got the student coming next week, have no idea what I'm going to do. So that part of it's good that they stay on it, they can actually see where it's gone. So I see that as a bonus. We see new ways of working, and Shan probably is doing that, 'cause she's one step ahead of us. That, you know, we see new ways of using this tool we cannot with paper. You know, we never saw a student till the day they arrived and the paper was set on the desk. We can prepare beforehand, and if we've had a cause for concern or any issues, we can start sort of front loading to say, do we need to do something extra, do we need additional support, maybe that's not the best mentor, etc., etc. So I see better planning.
So do the mentors get that information in front? I'm thinking in terms of confidentiality between issues with the students.
But that's the students. The hub and spoke mentor indicates that the student stays with that mentor for the whole 3 years, so the confidentiality isn't an issue, and they'll be timed out for the ones that don't need to stay on it.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that from our perspective, where we do have a large number of mentors, and obviously we're trying to upscale this, is there's no doubt that the system itself will accommodate large numbers of mentors and students. But I think what all HEIs need to factor in is the funding and the strategic management of that. You know, that there is a significant resource implication for this, and you can see certainly in our organisation, and clearly in Robert Gordon, having a project manager and an enthusiast as well as a technical team to support. So all of those things have got to be factored in, absolutely.
Mine's really a 2-part question. I'm Louise Hunt from Birmingham City University. Firstly, I wanted to ask Fiona and Karen, how did you manage to bring your own device policies and procedures implemented in all the trust organisations?
NHS Glasgow already had that, so it was quite nice.
Because we haven't got that in England. Most of the trusts don't have them yet.
A lot of people don't even know it's there. It was when I was starting and scoping the exercise. I was reading about bring your own device because I wasn't really sure. The HEI, the NESCO, which is used to be, which is like Aberdeen colleges, they've got a BYOD
but
as well.
Your NHS trusts and places like that, have they got?
We don't in RGU itself, but the NHS does, the colleges do, and we don't. So I suppose in a way I had an unfair playing field, that it was already there. But that was something I was ready to look at. And that was a problem in Glasgow Cali because they don't have that, and Lanarkshire wouldn't allow, they started off with this, and Lanarkshire wouldn't allow them into the wards. And it was an absolute nightmare because, they were all ready, partners said they were ready, they got to the wards and they were told we can't. And the bizarre thing is they had medical staff who were being assessed already on digital devices already. So they had to go to this hub area, so they had a room where they were all going to do the students' assessment, which wasn't ideal.
Have any of the English universities got BOYDs in when they're implementing this?
I'll be talking a little bit about that later on this afternoon.
Okay, great. The other thing I wanted to ask was to Lee. in terms of the system obviously holds the mentor's email. Now, we've got difficulties with that at the university I work at, in that our tech people will not let us set up any systems that hold personal information about anybody that's not a student at the university. How did you get around that?
But we use their work email addresses, so we don't know what they do that.
Did you have that as an issue, Lee? Was that something you had to?
Not at all.
No.
Okay, so we've obviously got a very strict IT department where I work.
But they are partners in practice. I was going to say, can you not get an amendment to your
Partners in practice agreement.
So you've got an amendment to your partners in practice agreement?
Well, we have a
Okay.
partners in practice agreement, so it's part of that the mentors are, because we have in the partners in practice agreement, we do all the mentor prep and all the support, updates and things. So it's all part of that. You wouldn't be able to use that if you know. I mean, partners are integral to our School of Nursing. You know, they're as important as the members of staff that we work that are employed by our GU.
I was a keynote at the university last week, and the dean there offered every mentor an honorary contract. That might be a way around it. Yeah, but it's when you're at a university where we've got about 7,000 mentors. That's a lot of honorary contracts to issue.
I'd go back to your partners in practice and ask for an amendment.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Can I add something there as well? You've seen one workflow where you send it to the student and on their device and so on. There are other workflows as well. So that once you've actually captured those mentors in your system, you can actually send out the assessment to the mentor with a list of students to actually complete that with. So it's a different workflow, but it just underlines the value of collecting those mentors into your system so that you can actually send it directly to the mentor and put them in control of assessing those students. It's just another workflow.
Just going to find a way of actually allowing us to talk with that mentors.
Once you've got them in there in the first place, yeah. Okay.
Hey, any?
This is for both Lee and Karen and Fiona. About we talked about the partners being in the NHS. What about the partners that are non-NHS, like voluntary or care homes? Have you had to work with different systems? Because often what we find, our care home mentors don't have their own personal emails. It's a generic one for the care home.
We're using that, the care home.
So there's been no difference with rollout or process or anything because they're independent.
The only thing was the firewall. We had to unblock My Knowledge Map because the My Progress didn't let them through the care home. It wasn't one of the emails they allowed. That's the only thing that we had to do was unblock it and put an exception rule into the chain of the home, and because they couldn't log on the PCs for it, but that was it.
So the assessment confirmation email would go to the generic email address, and that's the only problem.
We were anticipating that. That was the area that we didn't even know if they'd have devices, PCs or whatever, but they have one PC on it. We've been really fortunate so far anyway. Don't know, Shan, have you had any?
One of the things I would say is I'm actually beginning to think we need to move on from emails. There's actually an issue with emails in that the mentors get lots and lots of emails. And I actually think that's a red herring because the mentors have access to the students' platform, they have their own account, they can see all the assessments that they've completed anyway, so they don't in fact need the emails. And actually I think our mentors are getting irritated by all those emails, and I'm actually thinking, I'd kind of think shut the emails off and just let the mentors go to their account, and it's a much simpler way of managing it.
I think ultimately, if you're looking at governance, when a mentor signs the student off on the last day, it's her own responsibility to check back through. Remember, it's an ongoing achievement record, so she should be going back and having a look at all the things on it anyway to make sure it's all right. So by doing that, she would see anything that she does. And they should know themselves that if you've got, say, a student who hasn't done so many ESCs or any competencies, that those are not there. So they went back and they were there, they would know as well. So you've got to look at the governance at the end when they put the final signature on the tool.
Okay, one final question then before coffee.
Sorry, I just my name's Scott Rudd. I'm a distance learning administrator. I work within the Faculty of Science and Technology, and I talk about the signature and the email process. So if a mentor signs off on My Progress, does that also send an email to them to say that they've signed that actual assessment off as well?
Yeah, it sends them an email to say they've signed it off with a copy of the assessment that they've actually completed.
Okay.